Oh, it's at the same time? Oh my goodness, immediately. And Frieren said, because at the end of the day, no one else is aware of how frightening I can be except for me. That is such a subtle but massive flex on how truly OP she is, to a point that her own self is frightened by her OPness. Wow. Hello friends, my name is Benoit Kim, a UPenn educated psychotherapist. This episode showcases how psychological vulnerability can become strategic strength, and mentorship is cemented through shared risk, a beautiful display between Frieren and Fern. Assassination Zero is a sponsored tier of today's video. I appreciate your support and shout out to the best patron family. And let's get this started. Lack information still? I just want to spotlight and remind everyone of Frieren's exceptional humility of her ability to say I don't know. Her willingness to say I don't know speaks volume. Second thing, if worse comes to worse, we might have to use brute force. That sounds simple and it's like duh. Yeah, if strategy fails, we have to use brute force. The deeper layer of that is having a second option. Always having an exit plan, definition right here, or a backup plan. They're strategizing different pathways to success. Just like solving a puzzle, there is usually multiple pathways to solving a puzzle. So that's why they're strategizing the most optimal way. But when the push comes to shove, brute force is their backup plan or their exit strategy. That speaks volume to the ability for them to think collectively and the potent combination of Duncan and Frieren's experiential wisdom and her exceptional combat intelligence that's been established since the beginning of the show. Whoa. Did the translation change? Kill Miss Frieren? Immediate flashback to Sari. I wonder what the purpose of that flashback is, since every flashback callback serves a purpose. What I'm thinking is because Siri, she is the mentor to Frieren's teacher, Flame the legendary mage, some sort of a lineage of mentorship. So Sari is like the mentor grandmother to Frieren. And Frieren is the mentor to Fern. So is this the ongoing continuation of the stark philosophies between, or contrast philosophies between Sari and Frieren? Because remember, Sari was more about power. She was more imposing, whereas Frieren is more proposing. And that's one of the first thing I tell my clients, I always like to propose, but never impose. Because self-determination and self-determinism, definition right here, is massive. We have to and we must respect the self-determinism and will of individual. Either they're my core mandated clients, since I am a forensic psychotherapist, or whether they're my private clients, whether they're my friends, my wife, anyone in between. Doesn't matter how much we think we are right. Doesn't matter how much we want to impose our will and air quotes optimal way to success onto others. Intention is usually well, but the impact can be hurtful. And that's the stark contrast with this mentorship philosophical difference between Sari and Frieren, because Flame the legendary mage was more similar to Frieren's school of thought. So I wonder that flashback serves as, again, the stark contrast between how Sari wanted to impose her will, more of an authoritarian, dictator type, because she is power. She's a sage that has access to every known spell there ever is. Versus Frieren, who cares more about joyfulness, creating memories, respecting the will, the wishes, and self-determinism of her mentees and party members. And ironically, because of their philosophical differences, Frieren was the one that was able to defeat the Demon King. And as some viewers suggested, that another layer of the reason why Frieren was able to defeat the Demon King, because Frieren is not just a byproduct of a peaceful era, she actually is able to visualize and envision living in a peaceful era because she is adverse to conflict. Whereas Sayuri and Flamey, the legendary mage, they are prone to conflict because they're the byproduct of violence and trauma and war-driven era. And this is also what we mean if we extrapolate this to our day-to-day. This is what we mean when trauma passed down the generation. This is why we must collectively and individually interrupt and break the cycle of intergenerational trauma. People who are used to witnessing trauma and violence will often inflict that violence on the other people. This is what we mean by hurt people. And this is also why a lot of victims of child molestation, sexual trauma, sexual assault, when they get older, because they're used to chaos, because they've been primed and witnessed and been victims to those sexual trauma and other violence, that will in turn inflict those sexual trauma and violence into their own people. It's a vicious cycle. And I think that's another reason why Frieren was able to break that cycle, whereas Sayuri or Siri couldn't, or maybe did not want to. And so I think, or I wonder if that's the reason for that flashback of, again, reminding us how Frieren, in many senses, is a more exceptional and better mentor because she respects Fern and the role and the willpower of her mentees, whereas maybe Sayuri didn't. Oh, that's a long-winded analysis of a flashback alone. All right, this episode is called A Fatal Vulnerability. I'm guessing it's a fatal vulnerability of the perfect replica of Frieren. Someone's gonna tell them that they don't have a mind, since we learned replicas don't have minds. Who these? Oh, he barely survived. Oh, this is the Pringles looking dude with that Pringles mustache. Them butt cheeks though. The One Punch Man looking dude, I hope he survived too. Oh, jeez. Shadow the bottle. Dude, use the bottle. What are you doing? Sacrificial act. I respect you, One Punch Man wannabe. Oh, now you want to work together. Go, Duncan. Nice. Crucial intel.
心の働きを精密に模倣しているだけで。
それを踏まえた上で作戦を立てないと。
とは言ってもフリーレン。まだ不確定要素が多すぎる。
Dunkin' Donuts is still thinking, strategizing, trying to finalize all the pieces together.
その性質がわからんまま手は出せん。
特に複製体特有の弱点は本当にないのかだ。仮にあの複製体がフリーレンと同じ実力なら死傷者が出かねない。
私は答えんぞ。
だろうな。
Thanks for nothing, Proctor.
複製体を操っているのはシュピーゲルっていう神話の時代の魔物だ。ラビーネ。
Quick pause before the entrance of Laween and Kanye. Kanye's been going wild these days. I don't know what has gotten into him, dude. He's gone off the bonkers, but I think it's Kanye, right? I like what Richter was saying, that do they have their unique vulnerabilities? So they're continuing their thinking, collective thinking, right? They're continuing trying to finalize and consolidate all their intels. Just like the Pringles dude who came in with the crucial intel of replicas do not have minds. And intel collection is usually one of the most important strategic thing that every military, every intelligence officers do. Because information is power, especially in scenarios of warfares and battles. But here's my question. Obviously, when Richter looked at Sensei or Sense, the proctor, I'm not going to tell you that. Makes sense. She doesn't want to give them any advantages or unfair advantage where she didn't give any other test takers. I get it. She's being fair. At the same time, my question is, what is the actual role of proctor in this scenario? Are proctors only in charge of creating the tests? Are they not allowed to help anyone? Because usually in the real world setting, in my clinical internship and a lot of clinical internships for physicians, medicine, psychotherapy, clinical psychology, anything in between, there are usually proctors and supervisors. Proctors usually help and provide feedback and are part of the learning process for the interns. But in this setting, sounds like proctors are not allowed or they're not willing to give any help. So what is the actual role of proctors in this test setting? We'd love for anyone to point that out for me, because they're useless. They don't help anything. If anything, the other proctor even killed some of the test takers, as mentioned in the earlier episode.
なぜ知っている？
一番上の兄貴が大陸魔法協会の霊落の応募攻略の先遣隊
Oh, wow. That connection.
情報を持っていたわけか。通りでここ。
Insider information?
だが、とても合理的とは思えんな。それならば初めから俺たちと情報を共有して協力。
Touche?
な雰囲気じゃなかったからな。
フリーレンたちは気がついたら先に。
それにおっさんはルールがなければ容赦なく仲間を見捨てるタイプだろ。
Old man. Unk? Richer?
It doesn't hurt when you guys call me Unk!
嫌われたもの。
Oh, there were enemies. There were opponents in the last round. Makes sense.
来るものがあるな。
あい
Unk Richard.
さん
Oh. What did I say? Laween is like Fern on steroids. I've said that the moment she was introduced to the mage tournaments.
先遣隊の観測結果によると、シュピーゲルはあの扉の向こう側、宝物庫の内部にいて、
The Spiegel, the director?
ない脆弱な魔物だって話だ。そいつ
The monster itself is the gem?
本体は扉の向こう側だ。だがあの扉には強力な封印が施されている。
それは私も確認している。私の複製体の仕業だね。命がけ
Oh, goosebumps.
民間魔法の中でもトップクラスの封印魔法だよ。
It's...
あの扉は術者が死ぬまで開くことはない。
Is that Frieren's folk magic or the monsters?
方法もあるけど、多分それも対処済みだろうね。
どちらにせよ、シュピーゲルを叩くには。
シュピーゲルはダンジョンの中にいるやつ全員の複製体を作り出す。その複製体は時間とともに最深部に集まってくるっていう。
Another crucial intel. Do Laween the clutch?
先遣隊は兄貴の部隊を除いてほとんどが壊滅した。最深部目前のちょうどこの場所でだ。
Whoa. So the replicas do not work together, as I was asking, because even in the earlier fight scenes, we saw that teams were able to collaborate and work together to find weaknesses and weak links among the replicas and defeat replicas one by one. Makes sense, since replicas might be replicated perfectly, but they do not have minds. They don't have this higher thinking, executive function, neocortex things that allow humans to collaborate. This higher thinking ability. So replicas are fighting as if they're every person for themselves. Makes sense. But as Laween pointed out, again, with the clutch of this intel, over time, all the replicas will eventually gather and come together at this layer, which ultimately killed every other unit besides a unit of her brother's advance party, sounds like. So that's additional puzzling obstacle of this labyrinth. Sure, there is a time limit and there is an exit strategy of breaking that bottle, and the golem will be able to carry you out, as we have seen. So in that sense, Sense is a pacifist because she does give them a guaranteed exit strategy of this safety plan. Respect. At the same time, they cannot just aimlessly strategize forever. Makes sense since a lot of competition for puzzles, chess match, and so on, there is a time limit. And I think that's the most intrinsic yet dangerous time limit for the second part of this exam. If they don't hurry, they will be facing every other replicas that have remains, which is the replicas every test taker so far, except the ones that have been defeated. And that is a lot of manpower they have to face. So the pressure is on. And as I've mentioned, in the beginning of the Mage tournaments, pressure reveals character. And sure, all of this test-taking environments are arbitrary or synthetic, created by the proctors, but the pressure in itself is real. So pressure reveals character, and that's why we're able to see Duncan revealing his strategist thinking tendency, which is his character, Frieren's methodical observation first, wisdom, which is her character, Fern, her OPness as a prodigy, her ability to be adaptive, Lalween and Kanye, their ability to work together, right? In addition to endless clapbacks and childish fighting. And I wonder with this final puzzle of this crucial intel. So I think with that final pressure cooker environment, they're forced to let go and give in to the pressure by working together as one, because that's the only way to advance. So we shall see.
なるほどな。
複製体は心の働きを精密に模倣しているんですよね。なら、行動パターンによる弱点は本人と同じなんですよね。
Yes, Frieren said that in the last episode as well.
それならやっぱりなんとかなるかもしれません。
その弱点って何なの？
Is Fern going to reveal a vulnerability of Frieren?
こっちの壁際に立ってもらってもいいですか？うん。
Whoa! What just happened? What, was there a blind spot or mana blind spot? Notice what? Duncan realized. Fatal vulnerability title of this episode. Because you're not a prodigy, duh.
いや、手だれという先入観があったからこそ気づけなかった。魔法を使う瞬間にほんの一瞬だけ魔力探知が途切れている。
それって見習い魔法使いがよくするミスじゃ。
昔から苦手なんだよね。
自覚があるの
What?
なかったんですか？
だって恥ずかしい。
場合ですか？
しかし、
Oh, Frieren's so cute.
あまりにも卓越しすぎている。実際にこの隙をつける魔法使いなどほとんどいない。
とにかく作戦会議をしますよ。
Alright, oh man, so much has happened in that scene. First of all, Fern, you truly are a prodigy in every sense of that word. You're a prodigy intellectually, cognitively, emotionally, and also in terms of your magic capacity as a result. I cannot believe out of all these thinkers, Dunkin' Donuts, Frieren, Richter, sounds like he's also a smart thinker, with every manpower, with all these brains being present, the one person who was able to find an entry point, the only feasible approach so far to the final puzzle, which is the perfect replica of Frieren the Slayer, was Fern. And I think this is really deep philosophically as well, because this is what I meant by transformational mentorship definition right here. The role and the intention of every mentor and teacher is to instill without influencing too much that ultimately creates the perfect condition to foster mentee's ability to surpass the capabilities and the abilities of mentor themselves. Because remember, guys, why would mentors or teachers, if they were great and genuine, want to create their own replicas or Frieren 2.0? I think I talked about this in the very beginning of the series many months ago. Great mentors want to create mentees and allow them to surpass them. That's the intention of my own mentees, since I have quite a few. So, and I think this is another callback to the contrast philosophies of mentorship between Siri and that of Frieren. So it makes sense, but also surprising that Fern, the apprentice to Frieren, is the one that was able to gauge and reveal the fatal vulnerability of her very own teacher, Frieren, the great mage herself. Amazing. Second thing, can we also talk about the humanizing aspect of Frieren not being the perfect being as many people thought she was? Aside from her emotional disconnection for so long because of her trauma, because she's an elf, because she's immortal, this is the first time we have seen her revealing her vulnerability. The only other vulnerability I have seen of Frieren is her physical insecurity about the chest size. Remember that scene when she was looking at the sky, laying on the lap of Fern? That's the only insecurity I've seen. And this is the second time where the show was able to humanize and make Frieren seem even more relatable and approachable. Even though Frieren has always been relatable in many senses. That's why Frieren is such a beloved character by many. She was embarrassed because it sounds like having that split-second mana blind spot, as I suspected, when she was casting a spell, is a rookie mistake that's prone by apprentice mages. And obviously, Frieren is the last lineage of a Grey Mage. So no one, including Duncan, could suspect that a profoundly powerful mage like Frieren could have such a rookie mistake of having that mana blind spot. Yet, here we are. So she was embarrassed. It's such a humanizing and touching moment, for me at least, that Frieren is seemingly immortal. She might be the embodiment of eternal youth, forever youth. But she trolls, like that troll face she was making. She makes jokes all the time. She has lewd thoughts. She oversleeps. She's such an approachable and relatable character, despite having this backstory of being one of the most OP characters in the world setting. Third thing, the moment that Fern, asked Miss Frieren to stand by the wall, obviously Fern has to be the one that casts a spell, because one of the Fern's exceptional abilities that even Frieren admitted that she cannot match on par, where she's like, hey, don't try to compare yourself with me. Don't try to compare, because you will never surpass me in the amount of spells I've collected. You will never exceed in my mana capacity because I'm immortal. But double down on your advantage. Double down on your strength, which is your exceptional casting speed. You guys remember that flashback that I'm talking about? So Fern had to be the one by design to cast that spell to catch Frieren off guard. Because if every other mage casted that after, let's say in theory, Fern explained this fatal vulnerability, everyone else's casting speed would have been too slow. And Frieren would have had time through deep calculus and her exceptional combat intelligence to conceal and overcompensate that mana blind spot. So it makes sense that Fern had to be the one. And lo and behold, because of her exceptional casting speed or quick draw in a shooting scenario, they were even Duncan, after the fact, was like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe I missed that. Right? So that was such an amazing episode, or amazing scene. So to summarize, that scene really beautifully demonstrated emotional vulnerability of Frieren, transformational mentorship of Frieren, which allowed Fern to blossom into this exceptional mage that she is, who ultimately came up and revealed the fatal vulnerability. And third, it shows that no one is perfect. And truly, perfection is an illusion. And last thing I want to say is, again, I want to urge and encourage, and I hope for all of us to let go of our overfixation for perfectionism. Perfectionism is not real. It talks about one of the modalities in psychotherapy that I practice called ACT, definition right here. ACT is also called acceptance commitment therapy, right here, ACT therapy. It's called ACT, which is an acronym, but we say ACT because the ethos of ACT therapy is first, acceptance, and second, commitments. We need to do something about it. But one of the core pillars of ACT therapy is what we call dead man's goal. Definition right here. What that means is when we're making goals and when we are working with clients through the lens and modality of ACT, we always encourage our clients to not create any goals that are only feasible for dead people. For example, a lot of clients are like, hey, I never want to be anxious again. I never want to feel sad again. I never want to have negative emotions again. In response to that, I said, oh, do you know who are the only people that's capable of what you're describing? A person who is dead. A dead person will never feel anxious. A dead person will never feel depressed. And a dead person will never experience negative emotions because they're dead. Likewise, only dead people are perfect because they're incapable of making any mistakes. Unless you're Jesus Christ, because he died and rose again, right? So unless your last name is Christ, first name is Jesus, or you're a dead person, please stop striving for perfection. Instead, be like Frieren. Be accepting of your own vulnerabilities. Be able to joke about it. Make a troll face. And be able to strengthening your other aspects of your life to not just overcompensate, but double down on what you're good at so that even your weakness doesn't always matter, which is what Duncan said, or Richard. She is so good at everything else that no other person can exploit that vulnerability. I think that's much more healthy and feasible by doubling down at what we're good at versus trying to improve all of our weaknesses and be air quote perfect, because again, only a dead person is perfect. So let's not make any goals that's only feasible for dead people, guys. All right, let's resume. Oh, what a wholesome music. And of course it's muted because of copyright, but this is again another very quiet, and first half of this episode is very in action, but so much subtlety, masterful storytelling, emotional storytelling, and so much content. Aww. Yeah. Frieren's getting happier and happier. What is this? Whoa, that's so cool. What is that? Lizard looking monster? Oh, flashback, of course. Are we even watching Frieren if somehow Frieren doesn't find an abrupt but meaningful way to insert flashback about Himo the hero and the adventure party? No. It wouldn't be called Beyond Journey's End if we don't go beyond the current journey into the past of Himo the Jesus. Let's see what this flashback entails.
A summoner has disconnected.
Today's an off day. It's hilarious. Dude, their group is so OP, they don't even need a healer. Oh, that's a fat lizard. Oh! Wow. Another quick pause before we enter the second half of this episode, which I'm sure it's a climax and crescendo of a fight against the replica of Frieren. There's two reasons why Frieren is smiling. Yes, and one is because they're paying homage to the memory and adventure philosophy of Himmel that I talked extensively about in episode 24. But here's the second layer. Frieren is truly acknowledged and accepted the fact that yes, people who are passed away can never come back. Until maybe in season 2 when Frieren reaches the heaven. Who knows, right? But she's realizing that by continuing making more memories, by expanding our horizon of experiences, by deepening our cherishable memories with those that we love, we are able to not just replicate, pun intended, of the similar experience and joy we've experienced in the past, just like Himmel the heroes in the flashback, but rather we can even expand upon that joy. I'm sure Frieren is having equal, if not more fun now, creating these new cherishable memories with Fern, her beloved mentee, and other adventurers in this dungeon, another setting that Himmel the hero used to love. So it's twofold. She's having so much fun is because it's paying homage, and she's having euphoric recall about the past, because Himmel the hero and all the adventures in that 10 years is invaluable for Frieren. But second, the current, the present memories, because present is the gifts that keeps on giving. That's what we call the present, is also invaluable. So she's having double the fun and double the joy. Buy one, get one free deal. Amazing. Where did she get that white chalk, dude? What? Look at Kanye and Lawin, two children fighting in the back.
よし、攻略を開始しようか。
勝てるのか。
大丈夫。攻略できないダンジョンなんか存在しない。
Oh, I guess by design.
私は歴史上で最も多くのダンジョンを攻略したパーティーの魔法使いだよ。
Wow, that flex.
本当にフリーレンの複製体と戦うのは。
Damn, just Frieren and Fern? What?
少人数の方が相手の行動を予測しやすいからね。
Good point.
確かに全員で戦えばほぼ確実に勝てるだろうけど、大半が死ぬことになると思う。
Wow.
多分脱出用ゴーレムを使うような暇もないよ。
I mean, Frieren is that good that she will kill them all before they could escape. True. Okay, so 2 parts, 1 defense, 1 attack.
全滅だからね。
Good delegation.
ああ、健闘を祈る。
Oh, I'm so hyped. I am so hyped. Oh, so it's 4 of them. Okay. Oh. Another quick pause because I won't be pausing for this climax of a fight scene that I've been waiting for since Maze Tournament started, even though we've had numerous of those, right? I just want to quickly talk about another psychological implication of just now. The scene of Frieren looking at her replica. It's a confrontation of her own weakness and ultimate self-awareness. She's facing her own fatal vulnerability that Fern revealed exceptionally earlier on. So every single person, including Frieren, must eventually face our own demons, face our own weaknesses, and face our own fatal vulnerabilities. So what is your fatal vulnerability? And have you exerted any efforts and done any work to work on that? As I said earlier, I think it's better to double down on our strength than trying to incessantly improve on all of our weaknesses, because everyone has weaknesses. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Because again, we are not Jesus Christ, nor dead people. But that scene might be the most symbolic scene of this entire episode, because Frieren at last is forced to face her own fatal vulnerability because she's been so embarrassed to do so until now. Oh, can't wait. Let's go.
さて、このメンバーの中で苦手な相手を言い合おうか。
Oh no, it is just Fern and Frieren. I thought Lawween and Kanye were gonna go in. Guess not. Let's go. Oh, it's at the same time.
ジュドラジルム
Oh my goodness. Immediately.
様の予想した行動パターン通りだ。
Wow! Let me close my jaw. So synchronized.
ボルザム その隙に潜伏したフェルンを私は警戒する。余裕なんてあるはずがない。だって私が一番よくわかっている。
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
潜伏したフェルンは私でもそう簡単に探知できない。
Another advantage of Fern.
もう本当に攻撃に使う魔法はゾルトラークでいいのですか？
Basic offense magic. Hmm.
それにゾルトラークはエルフ
Fern the Zoltrak AK-47 is back.
反射神経で無意識に防御できるほどの年月は経っていないんだ。でもフェルンは違う。
You're different.
フェルンにとってゾルトラークは生まれ
Hmm.
そうだ。フェルンのゾルトラークなら私を
Oh.
叩き込むんだ。
Please forgive me. I know I said no quick pause, but I have to let this out before I forget. That's another beautiful callback to when that demon that was killed by Fern, saying that Zoltrak, a magic that is capable of killing demons. I think here's a second layer. Yes, callback, but even Frieren admitted Zoltrak, a magic that was devised and improved upon after Qual invented it, is not only capable of killing demons, but Frieren herself. It's that all powerful. And Fern is only able to do that because it's been incepted since her birth. Just like Frieren was able to defeat the Demon King because she's a byproduct of a peaceful era who was able to envision an era of peace. In this case, Fern is a byproduct of an era that was born into Zoltrak. I'm guessing that foreshadows that Fern will be using a critical, fatal blow of Zoltrak AK-47 to defeat the perfect replica during that split nanosecond of mana blind spots. What an amazing, amazing scene and strategy. And the last thing I will say is I got full body goosebumps from when Frieren during her internal monologue. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe this is the first time I've seen Frieren having internal monologue during a battle, because build-up is amazing, but almost every fight scene is no more than 5 seconds because of how OP Frieren has been in the party. But this time, because Frieren is facing herself, the fight lasts more than 5 seconds. And the shill finally allowed Frieren to have a prolonged strategic inner monologue. This internal analysis that reveals to the viewers of what is going on. And Frieren said, because at the end of the day, no one else is aware of how frightening I can be except for me. That is such a subtle but massive flex on how truly OP she is, to a point that her own self is frightened by her OPness. Wow. Let's go. Was it the critical window? Oh, another flash. There's so many flashbacks this episode.
お前は私のことが嫌いだろう。なぜ私の元に来た？正直、もう二度と会わないものだと思っていた。
Different philosophies.
先生の遺言状を届けに来た。
Did Flamey die?
あれから50年。フランメは死んだのか？
悲しくないの？
No emotions.
育てた弟子だ。
Is Sari a sociopath? Damn. No emotions. No grief.
何が書いてあったの？
皇帝が国を挙げた魔法の研究に認可を下ろしたそうだ。人間の文化圏では今まで魔法は魔族の技術であるとして表立った研究は禁忌とされてきた。
This is the beginning of a new paradigm, a new era.
彼女は新設された宮廷魔法使いとやらの教育に携わっていた。私にそれを引き継いでほしいという内容だ。
This was the will of Flamey the legendary mage.
贅沢なやつだ。
Wow.
魔法の研究の認可が下りただけでも快挙だというのに、それ以上を望むとは。
それってすごいことなの？
大陸最大の統一帝国が魔法の研究と軍事転用を始めるということだ。周辺諸国が黙っていない。わずか
That's a massive empire. Whoa.
陸中に普及する。人類の誰もが魔法を使える時代がやってくる。
Wow.
これは遠くな
It is an impressive achievement.
青軍に抗う力を手に入れることを意味する。
そう、すごいことだね。
That is sugoi.
まったくだ。だが、それは私の望むところではない。帰れ、フリーレン。こんな遺言は到底聞き入れられん。実に不愉快だ。誰もが魔法を使える時代だと。魔法は特別であるべきだ。
Yo, Sari is elitist.
外に教えるつもりはない。こんなものをよこすとは。フランメとは最後まで分かり合えなかった。所詮は気まぐれで育てた弟子だ。
先生はゼーリエは怒って遺言状を
Wow, Flamey the Oracle?
それでも伝えておきたかったんだって。夢が叶ったよってよくわからないよね。じゃあ私は行くね。多分もう会うこともないと思う。
フリーレン、その前に少し歩かないか。どうせ私たちには時間はいくらでもあるんだ。
True. Another flex.
誰もが魔法を使える時代はフランメの夢だった。あの子もきっと初めは人類のためとか魔王軍に抗う力とかそんなものはどうでもよかったんだ。
Who was the one that just ran by? Was it Flamey?
このお気に入りの魔法を知っているか？
Who was that red hair person that was Flamey when she was a child?
何の役にも立たないくだらない魔法だ。あの子は本当に魔法が好きだったんだ。世界中の人がそんな魔法を使えるようになってほしいと本気で願っていた。虫唾が走ったよ。まるで
That's harsh.
女の子みたいな可愛い夢だ。でも実際にそうだったんだよ。
This is this is a beautiful flashback.
と背の小さな小娘だった頃に語りだ。正直私はそんな時代はずっと先のことで、あの子には実現不可能なことだと思っていた。
But she did.
あの子は私にとっては無にも等しいような短い
True.
人類の魔法の開祖にまで上り詰めた。
先生はいつも判断がとても早かった。まるで何かにせかされているみたいに。
That urgency, because her life is limited.
は寿命がある。
Exactly what I said.
死に近い場所にいるんだ。人生には重大な決断をしなければならない時がいくつもあるが、あの子たちはそれを先送りにはできないんだ。
Meaning for urgency.
それを100年後にやっても200年後にやってもいい。1000年ほったらかしにしたところで何の支障もない。私たちの時間は永遠に近いのだから。
Wow, beautiful landscape. Pollution free.
焼けてから長い年月が経った。これから先は時代が加速するぞ。たった1000年だ。たった1000年で人間の時代がやってくる。私たちは人間に追い抜かれる。
Whoa, goosebumps. Whoa.
鍛錬を怠るなよ、フリーレン。
Oh.
お前を殺す者がいるとすれば
Or human mage.
人間の魔法使いだ
Goosebumps. Wow.
楽しみだね、ゼリ
Zeri.
エ。から先、たくさんの魔法使いと
See, their philosophies are so different. Oh, so different. Wow. All right, I have to pause because I'm sure we'll see if the fatal blow happens in the end of this episode or in episode 26. That's one of the longest flashbacks I've ever seen since the episode started. And I want to go all the way backwards. I don't know how many OG fans are here who remember me saying this in the very beginning of this show when I first started the series. I talked about would anyone want to strive for that immortality, because when you're immortal, you lose all urgency and all meaning. I know in the earlier episode, in the last episode, I talked about urgency versus meaning, because remember, truth is often in the middle. I love this poetic statement made by Zeri. She said that humanity exists closer to death and elves exist closer to eternity. That is so well said. And it's because humanity exists closer to death, they have this urgency to create meaning. Not arbitrary urgency. I think that's why the power of discernment is important, and we must discern what is truly urgent versus arbitrarily urgent, which is the thesis of what I said last episode and the beginning of this episode. But because this meaningful urgency, Flame the legendary mage, who was once shorter than Zari, and I guess that's a constant theme for elves. Zari eventually surpasses the height of Zari from that little girl to this tall woman, and Fern, this tiny girl, who also surpassed the height and the, a breast size of Frieren. So I like the humorous constant theme for elves, because apparently their giftiness for elves is not in the height or biological developments. Second thing, Flame the legendary mage left her dying wish, her will of death, in that little scroll, and Zari read it and she destroyed it. She's like, this is disgusting. It's very displeasing. I will only train those who are skilled. As I said live, she is an elitist. Makes sense. And that also makes sense why her philosophy for first class mage tournaments is extremely cutthroat and brutal and zero sum. That's why a lot of these first class mages who earned that privilege became monsters of their own. So that's Zari's philosophy being passed down. But here's another compromise. It sounds like Zari ultimately picked on the baton of Flame the legendary mage by taking over humanity's magic association. So shout out to Flame the legendary mage for planting that seed, but also Zari for reluctantly picking on that baton and watering that seed. So shout out to them both. And to close out, I want to once again spotlight and emphasize the stark contrast in philosophies of Zari and Frieren. That stark contrast can be seen in that hill looking at the beautiful landscape. Zari told Frieren, you better keep training, because you will either be killed by the Demon King or a human mage, as I predicted. But what does Frieren say in response? She says in the most joyful, non-offensive, smiling way that, I can't wait to see that era. It's going to be so beautiful to see this diversity of magic, seeing all these different types of magic, folk magic, legendary magic, and anything between to blossom. It's almost like a perfect DEI for diversity and equity, inclusion for a magic type. That is the showmanship and the display of how different their philosophies are. When Zari thinks about magic, she only thinks about in terms of violence, kill or be killed. But for Frieren, it's beautiful. It's diversifying. I can't wait to see how many different types of magic there are to be explored and collected. So in that sense, Frieren's already embodied this adventurous, joyful type of philosophy, similar to Himo the hero's adventure philosophy. Emphasis in the adventure. Emphasis is in the exploration in itself, not the obtainment of the outcome. What a beautiful flashback that was, and so much content and so revealing. The last thing I'll ask, because I said it out loud in passing, is Zairi. I wonder if Zairi embodies some sociopathic traits, ASPD right here, antisocial personality disorder traits, because she lacked no sadness when her student died. Instead, if anything, she says something very antisocial. She just a student I picked up a whim. But maybe a deeper, as I'm thinking, since obviously I'm thinking out loud, but then why does she find the need to emphasize that once again when she was holding that imaginary flashback of Flamey when she was younger, walking down that field? Remember, she said it for the second time. At the end of the day, she's just a student I trained on a whim because she was gifted. I wonder if Zairi suffer from the same emotional disconnection and trauma of accumulative and repetitive loss that I analyzed extensively for Frieren in the beginning of the series, because they're both immortal, they're both elves. And Zairi didn't have the fortune that Frieren had by meeting Himo the hero, who bestowed upon the gift of emotional connection and the appreciation to appreciate the human experience and the human condition. So I think there's two ways of interpreting what Zairi said. A, she could be sociopathic. She truly doesn't care. She's someone who cares nothing but power and destruction because she's OP. Or second, she is unknowingly either suppressing or repressing her grief and her emotional loss because she doesn't know how to process it properly and in a healthy manner, just as Frieren did in the first half of the series before meeting Fern and Stark, and 50 years after Himo the hero's passing. What do you guys think? Is Zairi a sociopath, or is she just another victim of her immortality and emotional loss? Let me know your thoughts. Oh, Zoltrak AK-47! Did it work? Oh, look at that. Oh, look at the killer stare. Did it work? No! No! I guess we will find out in episode 26. Man, that cliffhanger, dude, it's evil, man. Oh, wow. All right, I have nothing else to say besides what a peak action scene between Frieren and her replica and Fern with that fatal critical blow at the end. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Wow. As always, if you enjoy my analysis, smash that thumbs up, subscribe, help me out, but also help yourself out because you don't want to miss the next episode. And I appreciate you guys tuning in as always, especially to all the OG viewers who remember my criminal mispronunciation of Frieren. And as always, I hope to see you again in the next week's video. Till next time. Peace.